Making the decision to be transparent about my struggle with gender identity issues is a big part of changing my life to where I'm comfortable talking about anything, to share with you and to express myself in a way that I wouldn't want to do because that's not part of my life anymore, even though it is a part of who I am. I had to learn to let go of the anxiety of telling you about it and sharing that with you to the point where it's no big deal. And that is a big step towards developing a healthy self esteem. When I worked my way out of the gender issues, and I did that, um, my experience from that was having had that moment where it was no longer a part of me before I came into the church. It was about 6 months before. I had this moment where I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. This is crazy. It has to stop. And it did. It just stopped. And it was the wildest thing. I felt so uncomfortable at that point because I went from I went from having an anxiety about having anybody find out about my gender issues to deciding to come out and transition from male to female and going on hormones for a year and a half to having this moment where it's it's not impacting me anymore and I let it go. I realized that it didn't solve my problems. It didn't change anything other than my anxiety was eliminated. And so to have that moment where, you know what, it has no control over me anymore, but I didn't know why. And so when that happened, my anxiety went up again because I'm like, when is this going to come back and haunt me? When does it start again? And it didn't start again. And so that was 6 months before I had stepped into the church. And I literally, when I did step into the church, I decided to read the Bible from cover to cover. And I did that in 7 weeks because I'm looking for another resource as to where the gender identity issues came from because I struggled with that from 5 years old until 47 when I came out. And I had to find answers. I had to find a reason for that struggle. And the reason for that struggle has presented itself over the last 8 years as I've gone through recovery and I've gone through my growth with walking with Christ. But the self esteem, dealing with it and overcoming, having to have that be a part of my life, but it's not a part of who I am today, and just wanting it to go away to accepting it and embracing my flaws and embracing those struggles in my life is to openly share that gender struggle even today, even though I'm living as I was born, as my biological self, as who I am, and realizing that even though that the gender struggle was there from 5 to 47, and it was like, all the time it was pressure, all the time it was anxiety, and I just sit there and I think, you know it didn't have to be there. It just didn't have to happen, but yet it did. And I had no way to overcome that, and that my self-esteem was so low all my life. And it wasn't until I worked through it in recovery and through discipleship training and used all these tools. And it literally took a lot of time to do it. And I sit here and I think about, well, if I was growing up in today's world, and I would have probably been able to come out and admit to my parents and admit to my friends and so on. I wouldn't have been so afraid to share my gender struggles as a child. But then I think about it, I surely would have been transitioned. I surely would have gone through that. And while I was on hormones for a year and a half, and it did impact me, if I would have been going through that as a child, what would my life look like today? And I have to think about, okay, if I would have been impacted by full transition as a child, that wouldn't have solved the real issues, my real struggles, but it would have dropped anxiety as a child. So could I have been, if let's say I would have went through a full transition young in life, and then realized that I didn't need to do that, but I would have already had the transition completed, and would I be able to gain my self-esteem and solve all of these other issues that I have? And the answer is I do believe that I would, and that would have been part of my flaws, and I would have ended up in a different space, but I would have realized that I wouldn't have needed to go through transition. That didn't real, even though that was a thing that constantly weighed on me, and it cost me so much in my life. It cost me so much struggle because, like, even in school, I couldn't keep focus because I was dealing with this issue, and it just destroyed my self-esteem. It did so much that I ended up, I didn't go to school my junior year. I did graduate with my senior class, but I was a D minus student all the way through. And I just couldn't keep focus. And I did a lot of things so that people wouldn't find out who I was or what I thought I was. So I'm glad that I didn't go through transition as a young child. I'm glad that my parents didn't know. I'm thankful for that because I'm happy living the way that I am. I have my peace, I have my joy, I have my serenity, and my confidence is good, my self-esteem is good. I know who I am. I feel good. I feel great about that. Okay? And it took all these things throughout my life to get to this point so that I could have the self-esteem, so that I could have that. And I don't I don't regret the experience. But when I look at what we're doing with young children, I see that there are a lot of kids who I believe, it's my opinion, based on my experience, that we're doing harm to these kids because while it looks like that this is the answer, I don't believe it is, based off of my own experience. And at the same time, I think that if you do go through transition, you do complete transition, and you are still struggling with your self-confidence, your self-esteem, that I do believe even after transition that you can come full circle on that and address the issues that are hurting you with your self-esteem. And if you think that because you transition that you can't be a part of a good Bible-based Christian church, that's wrong. You just haven't hit the right church. You haven't been around the right people, because the church is there to help you to know Christ. It is not there to be an activist for the for any community or for any particular direction, other than to help you to know Christ and help you to have a relationship with Christ. That's a Christian church. It's a good Christian church. So I don't want you to feel that you couldn't be a part of that, because uh, I know you can. When I stepped into the church, I came out and I admitted who I was, and I was fully embraced, and it didn't matter. And I had the idea that they would not accept me because of who I was and what I went through, but that's not true. They did, and they do. And I'm very active in my church because of that. So, but that's not what this is about. This is about self-esteem. This is self-confidence, self-esteem, and embracing your flaws. And so, I've been able to do that, and I am able to continue to grow and to continue to work on my real issues that I have, or I shouldn't say real issues, but the the underlying issues that I believe contributed to my life is the way it is. And I keep on working on that, and I keep on improving. And it's one step forward. And I'll never be perfect. I'll never get it right. But I know I'm headed in the right direction. And so, you know, for you, it's whatever your issues are. So for me, it was, my focus was on the gender issues, and it just drove me all my life, and that created all kinds of problems for me, all kinds of struggles, because I was trying to hide it, and I was afraid of what people would think. And now I think it's far too easy, and parents are far too worried uh, that if they don't allow their children to go down that path, that their children will do something bad to themselves. And um, you know, I don't think so. I think if they're going to do something bad to themselves, that there are other things that are going to drive that. But I know some of you may disagree, and that's okay. Again, this is my opinion. This is based off of my experiences, and which the gender issues really drove me hard as a child. I mean, literally, it was every day, every hour, multiple times an hour. I'm sitting there thinking about it. It just never stopped until literally a year and a half into doing hormones and actually going through and being almost 100% transitioned. So I know it. I lived with it all my life. And I experienced it. I went to the P flag meetings, um, and I struggled in those meetings, but uh, I was out and about and functioning in society, and I'm so glad that I don't have to do that. That I can feel comfortable in the role that I was born into and who I am. And so, like I said, the biggest struggle that I've had since then was being willing to say, or wanting to say, that's all behind me and that's not who I am, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. But doing that um, limits what I can do for people that are struggling, and limits my ability to do what gives me the peace, joy, and serenity that I have today. And so by sharing that with you and letting you know my experiences allows me to move forward and to help me to have a strong self esteem because I'm not hiding anything, I'm not burying anything. I'm willing to accept who I am and what my life has been and where I'm going, which gives me the freedom to be comfortable in my own skin. So I hope that my scenario will help you in your scenario. It's not about gender issues, but it's about whatever your hangup is, whatever you've been struggling with. You know, go ahead and embrace that flaw or that weakness or that hurt, whatever it is, and feel free to share that so that you can be free of it and you can move forward, which will help your self esteem um, increase. And so, with that, I'm going to sign off on it for today. And I'll be back with another video tomorrow. But like I said, I really hope this helps. And I'm not looking for a debate over what you believe versus what I believe. I'm just sharing how I see things and what my experience is. And so, with that, I hope you have a blessed day. And feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or comments, or if you're a parent going through this with a child, if you're a child struggling with this, and um, you're looking for options, whatever. I'm here and I'm willing to walk with you on it, uh, and just give you a different insight. So have a blessed day, and I'll see you soon.